Do you remember the whole drama surrounding It Ends With Us earlier this year? You know, the one involving Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. At the time, it seemed like just another case of creative differences on a movie set, but oh boy, it's so much deeper than that. This morning, a bombshell story dropped, and let me tell you, this one is messy. Blake Lively has officially taken legal action, not just against Justin Baldoni, but also against Wayfarer Studios, their billionaire co-founder Steve Schwartz, and several others involved in the production of the movie. Things are getting real and the tea is piping hot. You're going to see this whole situation in a completely different light once you hear what's come to light. So, here's the deal. According to documents and the New York Times article that just came out, Blake has filed a legal complaint with the California Civil Rights Department. This is a big move because it's essentially a precursor to a full-on lawsuit. Blake's statement to the Times was fierce. She said, and I quote, "I hope that my legal action helps pull back the curtain on these sinister retaliatory tactics to harm people who speak up about misconduct and helps protect others who may be targeted." She's not holding back, and it's clear she's ready to fight. She also denied spreading any negative information about Justin or Wayfarer Studios, but the receipts are painting a picture of a much bigger issue. Let's backtrack a bit to how we got here. For those who don't know, It Ends With Us is a movie based on Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel. When it was first announced, fans were thrilled. Blake Lively was cast as the lead, and Justin Baldoni was not only directing but also promoting it alongside Colleen Hoover. Everything seemed perfect, right? Well, not for long. As the release date approached, fans started noticing something weird. Colleen Hoover and most of the cast unfollowed Justin on social media. It wasn't subtle either. Suddenly, Justin was doing press for the movie alone, while the rest of the cast seemed to be avoiding him like the plague. At the center of the controversy was how the movie was being promoted. Justin emphasized the story's focus on domestic violence, portraying it as a heavy, emotional narrative. Meanwhile, Blake and the rest of the cast were promoting it as more of a light-hearted romantic drama. Fans were confused and upset. The disconnect was glaring, and it became clear there were some serious creative differences. Rumors swirled that Blake was unhappy with Justin's vision for the film, and get this, she even commissioned her own cut of the movie. Talk about a power move. Ultimately, Blake's version won out and she got a producer credit, but not before tensions reportedly hit a boiling point. Things took an even darker turn when reports started surfacing about inappropriate behavior on set. Blake allegedly raised concerns about Justin's actions, including boundary violations and comments that made her uncomfortable. She requested safeguards like a full-time intimacy coordinator and external oversight. And while Wayfarer Studios agreed to these terms in writing, it seems things didn't go as planned. According to the complaint, Blake's efforts to speak up led to retaliation, with her reputation taking a nosedive. This is where Justin's PR crisis team comes into play, and let me tell you, the details are jaw-dropping. Blake's legal team subpoenaed text messages and emails that paint a very clear picture of how Justin and his team allegedly worked behind the scenes. They weren't just focused on protecting Justin's image, they were actively trying to destroy Blake's. There are messages where PR consultants discuss planting negative stories about her, boosting social media posts that criticized her, and even leveraging her less-than-perfect promotional strategy to turn public opinion against her. It's calculated, it's ruthless, and it's all laid out in black and white. The documents also reveal how Justin's team manipulated social media. They reportedly hired contractors to push specific narratives, start untraceable threads on platforms like Reddit and TikTok, and dominate the conversation online. In one message, a team member wrote, "We're crushing it on Reddit," celebrating their success in shifting the narrative in Justin's favor. Meanwhile, Blake was being dragged online for her perceived lack of seriousness in promoting the movie. It's wild to think about how much of what we see online can be orchestrated behind the scenes. But it's not just social media. The PR team allegedly worked directly with journalists to shape coverage. There are messages where they discuss speaking off the record to outlets like the Daily Mail, planting stories that made it seem like Blake was the problem. And it worked. For months, the headlines were all about Blake's so-called diva behavior and creative control issues, while the allegations against Justin barely made a blip. It's shocking how much influence a well-connected PR team can have over public perception. The New York Times report also dives into what happened on set, and it's disturbing. Blake alleges that Justin improvised unwanted kissing scenes and made inappropriate comments about his personal life. There are also claims that another producer, Jamie Heath, showed her an explicit video of his wife and entered her trailer uninvited while she was undressed. These are serious allegations, and while Justin's team has denied them, the evidence Blake has presented, including thousands of pages of emails and texts, is hard to ignore. What's even more troubling is how Justin's team seemingly used Blake's own missteps to deflect attention from these issues. Remember that interview where Blake came across as a bit of a mean girl, or the backlash she faced for promoting the movie as a romantic drama instead of focusing on its themes of domestic violence? According to the complaint, Justin's team leaned into these narratives to paint her as the villain. They even strategized about how to amplify these stories to keep the focus off Justin. This story has so many layers, and it's clear there's no easy answer. On the one hand, Blake's promotional approach and some of her public appearances didn't do her any favors. But on the other hand, it's hard to ignore the mountain of evidence suggesting that Justin and his team went out of their way to ruin her reputation. It's a classic case of two things being true at the same time. Blake may have made mistakes, but that doesn't justify the alleged retaliation she faced. The most striking part of all this is how public perception was manipulated. People hated Blake so much that the allegations against Justin were almost completely overlooked. And now, with this lawsuit, Blake is trying to set the record straight. Whether or not she'll succeed remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: this story is far from over.